鹿の穴。何この急に出てきた秘密機関。
アニメ最終回あるある。
I think it's also kind of a Super Sentai thing, unfortunately.
We opened this week with Elmer from last week facing down a much greater adversary than Nokotan, which isn't that much of a hurdle to overcome, but still, this enemy was particularly dangerous.
今、巨大な鹿嵐が吹き荒れる。
That Bambi horror movie is looking pretty good so far.
With that, we then come over to the Deer Club where Nokotan, wait, what?
回ラストの最終回直前っぽいシリアスな引きはどこへ。些細なことはどうでもいい。
Well, I got trolled.
Yeah, they just kind of pushed that little plot line to the side, which I'm not too crazy about. I mean, come on, even freaking Excel Saga kept their act up for a whole episode. However, I guess they just had to make room for what was coming next, as Nokotan was being hunted down by an organization called the Deer's Den that she was originally a part of, but due to circumstances, aka her getting bored, she abandoned it. They had sent out assassins, or murderers, according to the It's Anime subs, which, yeah, I'm sticking with that. Said assailants, and what Nokotan was trying to escape from becoming, were all actual deer-themed mascots from across Japan. Yep, for this final episode, they pulled a Cure Mofu movie, and managed to get a bunch of sponsorships in exchange for putting their mascots in the show.
Y'all just be careful with all those copyright things, otherwise Nokotan is not going to be able to appear in the next Precure crossover.
The first murderer was Kyun-chan, a tourism mascot from Hokkaido. And since this was clearly anime original stuff, they just decided to reuse stuff from previous episodes, including the quiz show stage from the second episode for their quote-unquote battle. Said confrontation was a dance competition, mostly just to show off Kyun-chan's main gimmick, which are her legit sick moves, and yeah, the music here was from her dance videos. Thus, since they couldn't let their sponsor's character lose, especially against Nokotan's outdated memes, Kyun-chan took the first W, and apparently this was how Elmer was defeated.
Dude, you could at least fall for bugs and drag.
With that, Nokotan was going to be taken away by, I think, a Gamilla from Space Battleship Yamato, unless there's other blue-skin anime antagonists that I don't know about, and probably there are. However, not wanting to lose her club, and especially her funds, Kostan challenged Kyun-chan for her freedom. She ended up copying most of Kyun-chan's moves, which, hey, if anyone can make other people's moves their own thing, it would be Hatsune Miku. As a result, it was declared a draw, which I guess was enough to free Nokotan, but she would have to face the other murderers. Still, she at least tried to part ways with Kyun-chan on good terms with, of course, her crackers, but the thing is, this mascot wasn't actually a deer.
Okay,
I legit kind of want some of that Kyun-chan merch.
The second pair of murderers turned out to be Chikamaru-kun and Hana-chan, who were mascots from Nagasaki. Their thing was that they were human children in deer outfits, which I guess is going to piss off PETA, though when are they not outraged over something from Japan? Anyway, their challenge was to guess what their partner was thinking, which ended up becoming a whole ad for Nagasaki, because gotta get that sponsorship money to fund this stupid show. Of course, Nokotan's partner would end up being Kostan, who again decided to go full roles of her size with her answer. This not only pissed off Anko, but Kostan couldn't figure out what her dear friend was thinking, so they lost again. Fortunately, the student council came in as pitch hitters this time, in spite of seeming to go against Neko Neko's general personality.
とあって、ずっとスタンバってました。
Hey, I don't blame you girls. Y'all deserved a lot more screen time in this show.
However, none of this would end up really mattering, as the deer cosplayers had to go to a kid's birthday party, so yet again, Nokotan just kind of lucked out through a tie. Yeah, while a lot of this has been kind of funny, it also does feel like this episode has been way too subversive for its own good. Like, they keep building up to some interesting stuff, like Kiru and Chiharu taking up this challenge, only to negate it at the very last second. Most of it just so that they could elevate the sponsored mascots. Fortunately though, the latter half of the episode would be kind of saved when they brought in the big cheese.
Well, we're boned.
So, we actually mentioned this mascot character very briefly back in the 6th episode, but I think we might have done him a little dirty, as Sento-kun is probably the most popular tourism mascot, not based off of a long-time and/or previous IP like Disney or the like. Hell, in some parts, he might even be more popular and iconic than those 3 circles. And this has been a rivalry that's been built up on social media, especially on this show's Twitter, where the two already had one of the most epic of battles.
And yes, I know about the context of that particular scene, but let's not get into that.
Nokotan was kind of rightfully scared out of her wits over this, so Koshtan decided to get ready for her ultimate challenge in the most shonen and 80s movie way possible, with a whole freaking training montage. And while I kind of want to put in that one song from South Park in here, honestly, Koshtan's song was a legit banger, so I'm not even going to bother, and in general, this whole sequence was pretty amazing. With that, the big day arrived, and for their final challenge, they did it in the form of truly ultimate combat, pro wrestling, specifically like New Japan, with some sprinklings of the WWE.
Did he console Triple H over getting the way better entrance?
No, and also, Chiara's brother and a bunch of other one-off side characters were there, because again, as they put it, it's final episode stuff, which is the kind of meta jokes and references that I do appreciate. From there, Nokotan had a legit really good comedy battle with Sento-kun, where she just went full Cure Princess at the beginning of her series. Anyway, this match fortunately used the round system, which, while boring to watch in real fake pro wrestling, did at least give Nokotan some time to recover and come up with a new strategy. Said new strategy was to just say screw the rules and turn this into an AEW match and use whatever means to bring in the sickos. However, not even a bribe from Tony Khan was enough to sway things in her favor, as Sento-kun was handily beating her ass into the final round of the match. Thus, Nokotan had no choice but to break out her ultimate technique, the deer copter.
And you know, watching this cute anime girl fly around with her antler propellers while bombarding a mascot character at a WrestleMania main event just kind of brings a tear to my eye and reminds me of why I love this art form so much.
However, Sento-kun still won the match thanks to using a variation on the Muscle Millennium, but Nokotan again managed to escape capture by using some word diarrhea to claim that both of them were winners, ignoring the fact that she cheated more than HBK in Montreal and still lost. Still, with that, this episode and series ended with everyone giving the okay, including most importantly Koshtan, who agreed to continue to take care of her dear friend, which might be the worst choice she ever made in her entire life.
In many ways, this episode does kind of piss me off with how much they ended up trolling us, and yet it almost feels like that was kind of the point.
Oh, don't get me wrong, I still think there's some legit stuff to criticize, like the overemphasis on the mascot characters to just get that sponsorship money, and they did commit way too many subversions by the end.
And yet, like a deer that you try to avoid hitting with your car, you can't really get all that upset at it because 1, it's cute, and 2, you feel like it's just kind of messing with you on purpose.
When you get down to it, this whole show almost feels like a total troll. I mean, it's not exactly to Pop Team Epic's level, but it does feel like they're just doing whatever they want much of the time. As a result, I do think it's almost pointless to get upset with it, though it is still worth pointing out when they're messing around a bit too much, or in the case of this episode, sometimes not quite enough when they also have to prop up the mascot characters. I mean, putting aside the previous episode's really cheap retcon, the first half of this episode felt more like they were just trying to promote the mascots rather than being about the show's usual insanity and fun kind of trolling. To put it simply, this show is supposed to be about the natural, over-the-top antics of the characters, and yet when you bring in these mascots, it feels manufactured and not quite insane enough. Thankfully though, this was made up for with the Sento-kun half, where not only did the mascot's presence not feel manufactured or restraining, he also felt like a natural character in the show as he was beating the stuffing out of Nokotan in one of the funniest and most insane segments of the show's whole run. This is the kind of brain rot comedy that we came to see in the show, and they were at least able to end on top with it, even if there were some bumps gained there. And really, while not everything in the series hit, in fact I think we kind of peaked in the 6th episode, this show was still really fun, and in many ways, it felt like the most anime in recent times. By that I mean, it is a show that's not beholden to many rules or tropes, which I do think we kind of need more of, as often a complaint about entertainment these days is how everything does feel kind of the same. Yes, they did kind of go overboard and broke one too many rules, especially when they already had something interesting going, but regardless, I think in the long run, this show and its title character will remain near and dear to many of our hearts.
Thanks for watching, and now that we do have at least one Wednesday freed up for next week, I think we can go back to working on some of our other projects for this channel.
October is coming, which is also the time for my personal favorite holiday, so we should do at least one special video to celebrate it. Hopefully, we'll get something done along with covering a few new shows for the season.
So, look forward to all of that. Until then, though, for now, my friends, and you know what? Maybe I'm gonna try my hand at baking some of those deer crackers and see what they taste like.
No.
They're not gonna be for you!